What's up, everybody? Back with another Bible study. Still in the book of Daniel, Daniel 9. So, here in Daniel 9, God shows us the first coming of Jesus, the timing of the first coming of Jesus, and also some timing on the second coming as well. So if you're not a believer, I would just ask that you watch this till the end and see how God shows us through His Word, tells us through His Word what's going to happen, and brings it to pass. In the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of Median descent, who was made king over the kingdom of the Chaldeans, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, observed in the books the number of the years which was revealed as the word of the Lord to Jeremiah the prophet for the completion of the desolations of Jerusalem, namely 70 years. So Daniel said he was observed in the books the number of years. So he was what he saw is some of this stuff. We have this right here in 2 Chronicles. Those who escaped from the sword he carried away to Babylon, and they were servants to him and to his sons until the rule of the kingdom of Persia, to fulfill the word of Yahuwah by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had enjoyed its Sabbaths. All the days of its desolation it kept Sabbath until 70 years were complete. And that's what we're speaking of here in Daniel, but this is what he saw from Jeremiah that was revealed as the word of the Lord to Jeremiah the prophet, the 70 years. So that's what we see here in Jeremiah 25. And this also, there's a past fulfillment and there's future fulfillments with this 70 years as well. This whole land will be a desolation and a horror, and these nations will serve the king of Babylon 70 years. So that's, and also after that, then it will be when 70 years are completed, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, declares Yahuwah, for their iniquity and the land of the Chaldeans. So that's what Daniel found out when he was studying into the books, and he was trying to figure out how much longer they had in Babylon. Or matter of fact, this is after the Medes took over. So he was studying that prophecy that was given to Jeremiah. So I gave my attention to the Lord God, to seek Him by prayer and supplications, with fasting, sackcloth, and ashes. I prayed to Yahuwah my God, and confessed and said, Alas, O Yahuwah, the great and awesome God, who keeps His covenant and loving kindness for those who love Him and keep His commandments. We have sinned, committed iniquity, acted wickedly, and rebelled, even turning aside from your commandments and ordinances. Moreover, we have not listened to your servants the prophets, who have spoken your name to our kings, our princes, our fathers, and all the people of the land. Righteousness belongs to you, O Yahuwah, but to us open shame, as it is this day, to the men of Judah, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and all Israel, those who are nearby and those who are far away in all the countries which you have driven them, because of their unfaithful deeds which they have committed against you. Open shame belongs to us, O Yahuwah, to our kings, our princes, and our fathers, because we have sinned against you. To the Lord our God belong compassion and forgiveness, for we have rebelled against him, nor have we obeyed the voice of Yahuwah our God, to walk in his teachings, which he set before us through his servants the prophets. Indeed, all Israel has transgressed your law and turned aside, not obeying your voice. So the curse has been poured out on us, along with the oath which is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, for we have sinned against him. Thus he has confirmed the words which he has spoken against us and against our rulers who ruled us, to bring on us great calamity. For under the whole heaven there has not been done anything like what was done to Jerusalem. As it is written in the law of Moses, all this calamity has come upon us, and yet we have not sought the favor of Yahuwah our God by turning from our iniquity and giving attention to your truth. And our iniquity is sin, and the truth is his commandments. Therefore Yahuwah has kept the calamity in store and brought it on us. For Yahuwah our God is righteous with respect to all his deeds which he has done, but we have not obeyed his voice. And now, O Lord our God, who have brought your people out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and have made a name for yourself, as it is this day, we have sinned. We have been wicked, O Yahuwah, in accordance with all your righteous acts. Let now your anger and your wrath turn away from your city, Jerusalem, your holy mountain. For because of our sins and our iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and your people have become a reproach to all those around us. So now, our God, listen to the prayer of your servant and to his supplications. And for your sake, O Yahuwah, let your face shine on your desolate sanctuary. O my God, incline your ear and hear. Open your eyes and see our desolations and the city which is called by your name. For we are not presenting our supplications before you on account of any merits of our own, but on account of your great compassion. O Yahuwah, hear. O Yahuwah, forgive. O Yahuwah, listen and take action. For your own sake, O my God, do not delay, because your city and your people are called by your name. Now while I was speaking and praying, and confessing my sin, and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before Yahuwah my God, in behalf of the holy mountain of my God, which is Jerusalem. While I was still speaking in prayer, then the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision previously, came to me in my extreme weariness about the time of the evening offering, and that's the angel Gabriel. He gave me instruction and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I have now come forth to give you insight with understanding. At the beginning of your supplications, the command was issued, and I have come to tell you, for you are highly esteemed. So give heed to the message and gain understanding of the vision. 70 weeks have been decreed for your people and your holy city. Now, first off, before I even go into this, the weeks doesn't necessarily mean weeks. As we see, God uses in prophecy, we see here in Ezekiel 4, I have assigned it to you for 40 days, a day for each year. And also, the 10 kings and the beast reign for 1 hour, which is actually 7 years. rather than 1 hour, so 1 week of years. So 70 weeks have been decreed for your people and your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sin, to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with plaza and moat, even in times of distress. So let's just stop here and see what this is talking about. So we have 70 weeks. 70 weeks have been decreed to finish all this. So from the decree, from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Jesus, until the Messiah, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Now, this isn't weeks, but it's or weeks of days. It's weeks of years. So that's 49 years, 7 weeks of years, 49 years, and 62 weeks of years, which is a total of 483 years. The 7 and the 62. 69 weeks is 483 years. And let me just keep reading, and we're going to go through this decree that we have. Then after the 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. And the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and his end will come with a flood. Even to the end there will be war, desolations are determined. And he will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering. And on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate, even to a complete destruction, one that is decreed, which is Yeshua, is poured out on the one who makes desolate. Alright, so first, let's go through this decree. So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, so it will be 7 weeks to 62 weeks. And this decree we find in the book of Ezra. And we learn here in verse 8, it says, he came to Jerusalem in the 5th month, which was the 7th year of the king. And this is King Artaxerxes. And King Artaxerxes, his 7th year was 458 to 457 BC. And there were actually 3 decrees. One by Cyrus, one by Darius, and one by Artaxerxes. But it's this one by Artaxerxes, which is the one that was prophesied about, which is the one that was is spoken about here in Daniel chapter 9. So I'm going to read through that decree, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. Now this is the copy of the decree which King Artaxerxes gave to Ezra the priest, the scribe, learned in the words of the commandments of Yahweh and his statutes to Israel. Artaxerxes, king of kings, to Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of God of heaven. Perfect peace. And now I have issued a decree that any of the people of Israel, and their priests and the Levites in my kingdom who are willing to go to Jerusalem may go with you. For as much as you are sent by the king and his 7 counselors to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem according to the law of your God which is in your hand, and to bring the silver and gold which the king and his counselors have freely offered to the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, with all the silver and gold which you find in the whole province of Babylon, along with the freewill offering of the people and of the priests who offered willingly for the house of their God which is in Jerusalem. With this money, therefore, you shall diligently buy bulls, rams, and lambs, with their grain offerings and their drink offerings, and offer them on the altar of the house of your God which is in Jerusalem. Whatever seems good to you and your brothers do with the rest of the silver and gold, you may do according to the will of your God. Also the utensils which are given you for the service of the house of your God, deliver in full before the God of Jerusalem. The rest of the needs for the house of your God, which you may have on occasion to provide for it from the royal treasury. I, even I, King Artaxerxes, issue a decree to all the treasurers who are in the land, who are in the provinces beyond the river, that whatever Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of God of heaven, may require of you, it shall be done diligently, even up to 100 talents of silver, 100 cores of wheat, 100 baths of wine, 100 baths of oil, and salt as needed. Whatever is commanded by the God of heaven, let it be done with zeal for the house of God, the house of the God of heaven, so that there will be not be wrath against the kingdom of the king and his sons. We also inform you that it is not allowed to impose tax, tribute, or toll on any of the priests, Levites, singers, doorkeepers, Nethinim, or servants of the house of God. So that's the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem that we see here in Daniel 7. So from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, which we learn is in the 7th year of Artaxerxes. And the 7th year of Artaxerxes was 458 to 457 BC. So from that decree, you go 49 years, and the temple was built. Everything was finished. That's the 7 weeks. And then there's another 62 weeks, which completes the 483 days, or 483 years. So if you go add on 483 years to this 458, 457 BC, you come up with 2627 AD, and that's when Jesus went into Jerusalem on a lamb and began his ministry, I believe. And so we're told exactly when the Messiah would come. It leads right up until the day, probably the day that he rode into Jerusalem on the donkey. And began his ministry. This is my understanding of it. And so that was 27 AD. He had a 3-year ministry, meaning he was crucified in 30 AD, which many people believe. And so God uses the number 40 for testing, like a testing period. we see here in Matthew 4. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And after he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he then became hungry, and the tempter came to him. Also, Deuteronomy 8:2, you shall remember all the way which Yahuwah your God has led you in the wilderness these 40 years, that he might humble you, testing you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. So the number 40 is a testing period. And I believe it was 30 AD when he was crucified. Because we see here in Mark 13, as he was going out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, Teacher, behold, what wonderful stones, and what wonderful buildings. And Jesus said to him, Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left upon another which will not be torn down. So this is where Jesus prophesied of this, of the destruction of the temple, the siege of Jerusalem. The siege of Jerusalem in the year 70 CE was the decisive event of the First Jewish-Roman War, in which the Roman army captured the city of Jerusalem and destroyed both the city and its temple. And that's what Jesus prophesied about right here in Mark 13. And so 40 years later, or 40 years before this, is when, from my understanding, when Jesus was crucified, which was 3 years after he began his ministry, which was 483 years after the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem that we see here in Ezra. So back to Daniel. So you're to know and discern that from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. A total of 483 years. The first 7 weeks is the first 49 years in which the temple was built. And then another 62 weeks of years. It will be built again with plaza and moat, even in times of distress. Then after the 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. And the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. And so after the 62 weeks, that's when he was crucified. And the people of the prince who is to come, this is what we're about to speak on coming here in a second. This is speaking of the coming Antichrist. Well, actually, I'm sorry. And the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Speaking of the destruction in 70 AD. And its end will come with a flood. Even to the end, there will be war. Desolation is determined. And we see that the end will come with a flood. In his place, a despicable person will arise, on whom the honor of kingship has not been conferred. But he will come in a time of tranquility and seize the kingdom by intrigue. The overflowing forces will be flooded away before him. There's a flood at the beginning of the day of the Lord, which isn't an actual flood of water, but a flood of people, war. And he will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week. This is speaking. So this is jumping to the end. See, after the 62 weeks, See, we have the 7 weeks and the 62 weeks, and then Messiah will be cut off. So that's when Jesus was crucified. And then we still have the one more week, which is 7 years, because it's a week of years, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sin, to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. So there's still 1 week left, which is the same hour that we see right here in Revelation 17:12. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have not received a kingdom, but they will receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. And I actually believe this is this is the prince, the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. So that's the people who is to come, or the prince who is to come, will destroy the city and a sanctuary. And I believe that's what we see at the abomination of desolation. And he will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week. So I believe this isn't in order right here, basically. Trying to explain this the right way. Hopefully it's getting through. And he will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week. And this is what I believe is so this is the Antichrist confirming a covenant with many for 1 week, and it has to do with the one world government and bringing everybody together for the tribulation time. But in the middle of the week, he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering. And on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate. So that's what we see over here in Daniel 11. Forces from him will arise, desecrate the sanctuary fortress, and do away with the regular sacrifice. There's the ceasing of the sacrifices that we see here. He will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering. And they will set up the abomination of desolation. So that's when the abomination of desolation happens. And on the in the middle of the week, that's when the offering is stopped. And on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate. And then, so we have the abomination of desolation. And I just wanted to go through a little bit of this article right here, showing some strange things that happened in the temple in the 40 years between the crucifixion of Yeshua and the destruction of the temple. And so let me just read through a little bit of this. In the centuries following the destruction of the temple, 70 CE, the Jewish people began writing 2 versions of Jewish thought, religious history and commentary. One was written in Palestine and became known as the Jerusalem Talmud. The other, written in Babylon, and was known as the Babylonian Talmud. We read in the Jerusalem Talmud, 40 years before the destruction of the temple, the western light went out. The crimson thread remained crimson, and the light of the Lord always came up in the left hand. They would close the gates of the temple by night and get up in the morning and find them wide open. A similar passage in the Babylonian Talmud states, "Our rabbis taught during the last 40 years before the destruction of the temple, the lot for the Lord did not come up in the right hand, nor did the crimson-colored strap become white, nor did the westernmost light shine, and the doors of the temple would open by themselves." So, I'm going to read through a little bit more of this. The miracle of the lot. The first of these miracles concerns a random choosing of a lot, which was cast on the Day of Atonement. A lot chosen determined which of the two goats would be for the Lord and which goat would be for Azazel, or the scapegoat. During the 200 years before 30 CE, when the high priest picked one of the two stones, again this selection was governed by chance, and each year the priest would select a black stone as often as a white stone. But for 40 years in a row, beginning in 30 CE, 30 AD, the high priest always picked the black stone. The odds against this happening are astronomical, 2 to the 40th power. In other words, the chances of this occurring are 1 in approximately 5 billion something. 5.5 billion. The second miracle concerns the crimson strip of cloth tied to the Azazel goat. A portion of this cloth was also removed from the goat and tied to the temple door. Each year the red cloth on the temple door turned white, as to signify the atonement of another Yom Kippur was acceptable to the Lord. This annual event happened until 30 CE, when the cloth then remained crimson or red each year until the time of the temple's destruction. Because they rejected their only way to get rid of the sin, to wash away that red and make the cloth white again, So, also with the temple doors, the next miracle which the Jewish authorities acknowledged was that the temple doors swung open every night of their own accord. This too occurred for 40 years, beginning in 30 CE. The leading Jewish authority at that time, Yohanan ben Zakkai, declared that this was a sign of impending doom and that the temple itself would be destroyed. The Jerusalem Talmud states, "Said Rabban Yohanan ben Zakkai to the temple, 'O temple, why do you frighten us? We know that you will end up destroyed. For it has been said, open your doors, O Lebanon, that a fire may devour your cedars.'" And then also the menorah. The fourth miracle was that the most important lamp of the 7 candlestick menorah in the temple went out, and it would not shine. Every night for 40 years, over 12,500 nights in a row, the main lamp of the temple lampstand went out on its own accord, no matter what attempts and precautions the priests took to safeguard against this event. It's crazy. Ernest Martin states, "In fact, we are told in the Talmud that at dusk the lamps that were unlit in the daytime, the middle 4 lamps, remained unlit, while the 2 eastern lamps normally stayed lit during the day, were to be relit from the flames of the western lamp. So this western lamp was to be lit at all times, and this the one that went out every night, every single night. This lamp that was supposed to stay lit all the time went out. All beginning at 30 AD, leading up to the temple destruction in 70 AD, the 40-year testing period. So here in Daniel chapter 9, God shows us and prophesied back in 500, 600 AD, BC, exactly when the Messiah would come. And this same Messiah that did come, he fulfilled over 300 prophecies. The odds that one person would be able to fulfill even 8 of the prophecies is numbers, chances beyond imagination. He fulfilled over 300. Impossible that it's not who was prophesied about hundreds of years before. So we see the leading up to that. We see the first 69 weeks, and then the 70th week is the tribulation time, the 7 years of tribulation. That's the final week in the 70 weeks. But I think there may be more in here as well. We all look at this fulfillment of it and believe this is all it is. But I believe it may be more. I believe there may be 70 literal weeks, or 7 weeks and 62 literal weeks from a certain point until he comes. And it's interesting that, I mean, the way things are looking, the way the world is looking, we're right at the end. We're very, very, very close, and I would be surprised if we even made it to next year. But I find it interesting that if you go to the day of the release of the peace deal, which is technically a issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, because they're planning on giving some of Jerusalem to the Palestinians. So that's the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Until Messiah the Prince, it'll be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. If you take the 69 weeks from the release of the peace deal, it lands 3 days after Pentecost next year. And a lot of us know the significance of Pentecost and the wheat harvest, and also the third day. There's a lot of stuff in scripture about the third day. So that's something else I just found interesting. I think there may be another fulfillment of this here in the end times, with possibly 69 weeks, 70 actual weeks or days or something, But hopefully I was able to explain this well enough and not be confusing. I know part of it got a little messy, but thank you for tuning in. That's the end of Daniel 9. Love you guys. Shalom.